Welcome to Market Wave. We're so glad that you've joined us. So glad that you're listening with us. I'm Danielle Terrelong, CEO of DRT Communications, and I am joined by one of the best strategists, the best business strategists here in Jamaica, who really serves, companies and entrepreneurs across the world. Her name is Stacey Hines.
Hi.
Many of you know her from the ICD group here in Jamaica, but really serves a lot of entrepreneurs and growing businesses in Jamaica as a consultant. And she's also the chairman of DRT Communications. So that's also my blessing. Thank you, Stace, for being with us.
Does that mean that I'm also chairman of Market Wave?
You are chairman of Market Wave.
Of DRT.
Yes.
Look how we did that.
We just scaled this business right up.
Yeah.
Scaled up your portfolio.
That's right.
So that means I'm the CEO of Market Wave.
Yes, you are.
So I'm CEO of 2 companies. Actually, it feels like 5. So today we want to talk about what if. What would have happened if? And there's so many situations, so many global stories that we can see, what would have happened if. We have no questions in our minds at DRT Communications that if you have proper monitoring and measurement in place, that's just one of the things you have to do. You get to see what's trending. You get to hear what your consumer is saying. You get to know what people are liking and not liking.
Yep.
And we're seeing big companies. Our team said, what if Blockbuster had media monitoring? Now, before you jump in, I think there are many of our listeners who are too young to even remember even what Blockbuster was.
Yeah.
So there was this time, long time ago, once upon a time, where you could rent VHSs, otherwise known as cassette tapes. And then it went into DVDs, which I hope everybody listening to this podcast knows about.
Yeah, man, I think everybody would know DVDs.
I mean,
DVD, CD,
the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you could go to a store called Blockbuster across the United States and certain parts of Canada and rent a VHS if you missed it in the movies.
I used to love going to Blockbuster, by the way.
I know.
I mean, and when they started selling like popcorn and sodas and stuff
you were
like
getting
that,
the full experience.
Yes, I was like wicked. It used to be like a weekend family trip.
Absolutely.
We're going to Blockbuster. It's Friday afternoon after school. Parents come home. Let's go to Blockbuster. And everybody's like, yeah.
And it was also a big part of date night. Like you didn't just watch the movie. The big part of the date was going to Blockbuster, choosing the movie together.
Yes.
And then they would have cool sales like, $3, $4, $9.99 extra day. So you had to return these VHSs, whether in 24 hours or 48 hours, you were a member of Blockbuster.
The hot movies you had to carry back within 24
hours, no matter what. Yeah. So you were forced on date night or family night to watch this super fast. And that was a big part of, I would say, the 90s into the early 2000s of how we experienced movies once they left the theaters.
Yes.
Right? And then, of course, it moved from cassettes into DVDs. Now, now that you know, if you're too young, now you know what Blockbuster was, we can say, what happened?
Yeah. Keyword was, right?
What was. So, Stacey, you remember, I think you were living in Atlanta or Canada at the time.
Somewhere over there. Somewhere in North America. But essentially what started to happen was you started to get other communications around ways to see movies, right? And I actually remember getting an email about a company called Netflix.
Right.
And it started out where you would get something in the mail. So Blockbuster actually went that route as well, where persons didn't necessarily want to go to the store. And so you started to get your DVDs in the mail.
Right.
And then this thing, Netflix, popped up. And I was like, oh, okay, so there's another Blockbuster. It was kind of like, what's that about?
Who are you?
Yeah, who are you? And I think the convenience aspect of it is what started to take over. Now, clearly, they didn't necessarily have as many movies as Blockbuster.
Because Blockbuster had all the hot stuff.
And Blockbuster had choices as well. You could bring you could drop off the DVD back on your way to work. So you could stay home and get it sent to you, and then you could take it back to the store. So there were a few options that were happening there. But the curiosity around, well, who is this Netflix?
Right.
And what is it? Is it kind of a Blockbuster? Is it, is it subsidiary? Because Blockbuster kind of owned the space.
Right.
You
were always going to Blockbuster. It was kind of like Band-Aid or, any of those things.
And then also what started to pop up were boxes. They're called red box, where you'd see, like, you'd be going to the supermarket and you come outside and there's this box with movies that you can now pick up. Now, the whole supermarket thing was just genius, because you're like, oh, this is so cool. So now I have these different options, and it's not just Blockbuster anymore.
Right.
And
they went straight to the convenience factor.
Yeah, straight to the convenience factor, which was a big deal, especially when you lived in places that were cold and they had real winters. And you don't necessarily
want to go to the video store.
You don't want to go to the video store, you know? So that's what kind of started happening in this space. Yeah.
And then we started seeing where they started to leverage things like you could keep this movie for a week.
Yes, the 1 week thing was stellar.
Was real. And we see, you know, in post case studies where even the consumer didn't want to pay the late fees, because when you didn't, we didn't talk about that before, but when you didn't return that movie in 24 hours, it was like $5, even though you had rented the movie for $3.99.
Yeah, I hated Blockbuster debt.
Yeah, Blockbuster debt was a real thing. It was a real thing.
And they got you with it too, now, because they knew you would want a movie.
Yes.
And you can't get another one until you pay the late fee.
Until you pay your Blockbuster debt. It was no joke. It was a real thing. I mean, I would tell you a story about a CEO of a marketing company, you know, just a crazy story that could never clearly happen, of, you know, going between her boyfriend's Blockbuster debt and her Blockbuster debt and clearing one, and then that one was still racking up, and then switching over as they try to clear their Blockbuster
I'll just
debt.
open a new account.
Right. Because late fees would keep adding up, and we see where Redbox and Netflix with these, you know, they leverage the convenience, and we also see where you had more time with movies. You also had the opportunity for no late fees was a big thing. And that's what consumers started to demand.
Yes, and enjoy. And I think, though, what I didn't expect was, I didn't expect to see Blockbuster stores starting to close.
To close down.
I didn't expect that.
No, and I feel, I don't remember exactly, but I feel like it happened pretty fast.
Yeah.
And maybe it was in line with how quickly people took on to the work that was done by Netflix and Redbox in terms of leveraging that convenience, saving you $1. There was no Blockbuster debt anymore. How quickly they moved, and then bang, it's like Blockbuster was.
Exactly. Now, if they had media monitoring, possibly they would have seen the shift towards these new entities that didn't exist before.
And what the consumers were saying, you know. So I tell our clients all the time, it's not so much when, you know, we have no reservation in saying that we're the best media monitoring agency in the Caribbean. And here's why. We get to tell you, we have the opportunity to, we know what's happening in the media space ourselves, because we're also a marketing agency. But we know what's happening in the space, and we're aggregating this data in real time. So you know trends that are happening as they are happening. You're hearing the conversation. So let's pretend, you know, Blockbuster was our client. We'd be able to tell them right away, listen, you have consumers saying late fees is a problem.
Yes.
They are bigging up, as we say in Jamaica, the fact that there are no late fees. You're able to hear these trends as they're happening. Yeah. We're aggregating them. We can give you a 3-month report, a 1-month report, a 1-day report. And so, you know, that can sound like a hard sell, but I'm not. What I'm saying is, we now have the opportunity to know what's happening as trends develop. That's
the part that I think is really powerful. I think in a talk before, I called it the crystal ball of marketing,
right?
And the value that's in that, you know. And I do a lot of social media stuff,
right?
And oftentimes I really want to know, is this, you know, carrying through across different channels? Like, is anybody out there really hearing me?
Right.
You know, where is that wave?
Going.
Where is that wave going?
That
market wave, yes. Where is that wave going? You know, and I oftentimes wonder if persons are really clear on the power that they would be able to unleash in their marketing strategy if they had
proper monitoring, proper measurement. And for me, you know, when I meet with CEOs now and certainly marketing directors, we're seeing where more are asked, where they're not making strategic decisions these days without the data to support. So tell me a little bit about, as a strategist, we're not fully off of the Blockbuster story, but we work with big entities and some small ones too. That importance of watching your trends, of monitoring and measurement as a strategist.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I can definitely tie it back even to the Blockbuster story, because what a strategist uses in terms of insight is not just data from the market, but also what is happening inside the organization, right? So if I knew that I'm coming in to help Blockbuster plan for their next strategic planning period, right? And we're going to set out on the next big move that we're going to take. Are we going to acquire somebody? Are we going to merge? Are we going to look at focusing in resources on a specific area? I'd want to know, well, what has been happening lately? And so when the CEO or founder for Netflix came into their doors and said, hey, I have this niche product that is really doing wonders for me, and I think Blockbuster should buy it.
Yeah.
I would have been able to advise the CEO on, we could actually test that and see how it works. So even without having media monitoring, they could have used the relevant data that they would have gotten on the ground to make some insightful decisions. Now, if you have media monitoring, then as a strategist, that's like gold for me.
Right.
Because I'm then able to walk in using existing information that's confirmed,
about
quality,
your market, the industry,
quality data, right? And then we can now build a plan that is using that information. So
and it's robust.
Absolutely.
It stands up.
It stands up. It's proven data. You have metrics that go along with it. So you can
timely.
it's timely. So you can even test the key results that you are expecting to get. Right. And then if that's not happening, you can look back at your strategy and say, okay, well, where can we pivot? And you can go back to your monitoring results and say, okay, well, we haven't tried this, and this seems to be working for our competitors over here. Right. Maybe we can leverage this and do something different.
Right. For those who don't know, actually what did happen with Blockbuster, as we read in our research, is that he pretty much laughed the Netflix guy out of his office and said, whatever.
We're like the boss.
Space. We are the boss.
Netflix, who? You're in your niche. Just kind of stay there.
Just stay there.
And they were disrupted.
They were surely disrupted. Yeah. And then we see, we were talking earlier, and it's like, Oscars now?
Yes.
Netflix in the Oscars.
I think Netflix is doing things that not even they thought they were going to be doing initially.
Yeah.
Like the initial dream was, we could make this so much simpler for customers, and maybe we could get Blockbuster to buy us. Right? Yes. And then Blockbuster said, and now Netflix is like bossing it.
Absolutely.
I mean, they were nominated. One of their movies, I think it's The Irishman, this past Oscar season, was nominated for like 14 categories.
Absolutely.
And the guy, they were saying, well, you didn't necessarily win anything. And they were like, who cares? We didn't exist, a couple decades ago.
And our brand is associated with it. And and importantly, Netflix is staying on trend.
Yes.
They're seeing what they could easily say, we're going to stay in our space of just movies that were in the theater. But no, I think they would have learned from even what happened with Blockbuster. We're staying on trend. We're realizing that, diversity, different types of content that people are yearning after. Short versions, TV series, production, acquisition of content.
And you know what? I think that media monitoring offers that Netflix has at its fingertips, where a lot of the companies that we serve may not have at their fingertips. Right. They have that data because people are coming onto their platform and are interacting, engaging with the movies. So certain patterns, behavioral patterns. So they have that real-time information just based on their platform. Right. What media monitoring is doing is it's offering that insight
to companies who don't have that.
Who don't have that. They can get the real-time comparisons. They can do the tracking and monitoring. Mm-hmm. So I think there's that hidden magic that is not so hidden if you have media monitoring.
If you have a media monitoring and measurement service. And the other thing is, people might be saying, oh, that was Blockbuster, that was the States, or certainly North America. But we have seen examples locally where we can do a what if. We have a large telecom, of course, that, dominated much of the Caribbean for a long time. Mm-hmm. And, by the way, it's now my perfect example when I give speeches of that company as a rebound brand, as a company that has come back in such a powerful way that's just appealing to customers in an extraordinary way. But we saw where they had a monopoly, and competitor was able to come in and leverage customer insights.
Yeah.
And actually outdo them for quite a while.
Yes.
And if you could think that if there was a media monitoring technology available for that, initial the telecoms that had that monopoly, if they were a focused one on the consumer needs, but had that insight coming to them in a very real way, a very timely way, would a competitor be able to come in and kind of just swipe the market?
Yeah, I think timely is what is also really critical, And I think one of the challenges that a lot of persons inside of organizations face, and maybe even what was happening inside of Blockbuster, is you may have had persons in there that were forward thinking and looking towards the future and having ideas that could have become the next Netflix, right? But if they didn't have the data to support it, having that conversation with a CEO or a chief marketing officer or whatever the person's title was may have been difficult for them.
Right. And I can give you two super examples that I tell potential clients all the time, and even our existing PR clients. One of the things is don't wait till a crisis comes. We have a client that's in a crisis right now. And, we had to set them up really fast. Of course, if they had been in our system before, we would have been able to catch their crisis for them. But also, when you are in continuous measurement, you could probably foresee that this media crisis was gonna hit you. The other thing that happens, we have our news monitoring where it's monitoring everything that's happening, the conversation happening in talk shows and news as it is happening across all media platforms. We also have our ad monitoring where we're able to look and see how a competitive space and industry is actually spending money in the advertising space.
Oh, that's good.
Now being able to even look at the creative against your own, and that's available to you in real time.
Yeah.
And I'm saying if we have that data available in real time, you're able to respond and react in real time, because we're living in a very real time life.
Yes.
Right? Life is real time.
At demand, on demand, always for the consumer, right? And I think what's really empowering about having tools like media monitoring and ad monitoring is that you can say, this is why I'm making that decision.
Right. The why is answered. And our intention for our strategy, or the reason why we're going in this direction, is because of this why. Why? Yeah. So the why becomes thing, and if you talk to any CEO, and especially a CFO, if you have to report in your finances into one, is they're going to say why? Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
And having a proper monitoring service in place allows you to answer that why in an irrefutable way.
Yeah.
And nobody can question whether your sponsorship of Sumfest or St. Lucia Jazz Festival or, Jamaica Carnival, whatever it is, nobody is able to question whether that is a good idea or a bad idea, depending on what you're presenting, because you have the ability to look at how the competitive space advertised during that. How was the media talking about it? How were consumers engaging with your product during that time? What were they saying, your service? And be able to make empirical decisions. Because let's face it, that's what's being demanded of us, brand managers, PR experts, marketing experts. We are having more Stacys in our space right now demanding on behalf of CFOs and CEOs that we are doing things strategically.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think competitive advantages is top of mind for everybody. And of course, that falls squarely within the portfolio of marketing.
Right.
And it also demands us in a way to check our egos at the door and to have an outside in view versus an inside out view, because I believe that's really what was going on with Blockbuster, is that it was very much about, well, we're the kingpins, and so we don't need to really know what else is happening. We already know what we know.
Right. And we're living it. So I see a lot of the time when, I may go to Sumfest, and because I love Taurus Riley and Beanie Man, I end up having a remarkable experience. I walk away from Sumfest saying, my God, Sumfest was the greatest this year.
Yes.
But if you look at the monitoring tool, Was it really? Did everyone?
Right.
And by the way, the reports are always fantastic. I'm just using a
As an
hypothetical example. But any form of stage show, if Taurus is there, it's a great time for me, right? I'm happy.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's like in the parking lot down here. That's the best stage show I've ever been to. Every time Taurus performs in front of me. But was it really?
Yeah.
Because sometimes when we in marketing are experiencing something, we're experiencing it through our own emotions, our own lenses. But what we want is that to check our ego at the door when we get back into the boardroom.
Absolutely.
And say, yeah, I was there and I thought it was a great experience. But here's the data to back it up.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I may have had a good time, but 65% of people, according to our social media report, had a negative sentiment or engagement around it.
See the marketing words, negative sentiment experience.
experience around it. And we noticed that we had anticipated $2.5 million worth of media coverage and certainly, disc jocks and talk shows talking about it. But actually, we didn't get $2.5 million or 30 articles. We only got 10 and we were only mentioned with no visuals.
Which is huge because you have this marketing budget that is always being clawed back, right? And
the first one to get cut every
yes,
single
it's always
time.
the first one to get cut. And to be able to actually see how your ad spend is really being used.
Being worked.
Being worked.
Your promotional spend, your PR spend. Are you really? I mean, are you getting the value? Even to measure your agencies. I tell our clients all the time, use our media monitoring software to even assess us. Clearly, I want them to assess our competitors more, but I want them to assess the work that we're doing. But really, I always say it's an auditing fee. So every year, you spend between 1% and 2% of your average revenue on auditing your company's finances. Why not use 1% to 2% of your marketing budget? Yeah. So by the way, because that helps you get the 10% increase you want next year.
Yes. And it helps you to validate the spend that you are already allocating to
and
marketing.
Seeing if things are really a good idea.
Yeah. No, that's so true. So I love the what if.
Yeah, the what if.
Blockbuster.
I love the what if.
We should what if somebody else next time.
We were going to what if. We should do more what ifs. I think that's the plan. So on that note, what if you have a what if, email us at marketwave@drtcommunications.com. Of course, you're following us at DRT Communications on Instagram or Facebook. We want to know what your what if example would be. Any questions for Stacey or myself? Stacey, that I am Stacey Hines. I am at Daniel DRT and of course at DRT Communications. Way too many handles going on right there. Our editors are going to have a hard time filling all of these in on the screen. But, email us or tag us on what ifs and what are some of the things that you would like to see or know about measuring and monitoring. I always want to speak to young people coming up in the business, right? Because I have to interact. We give talks at universities all the time. Stay tuned into this podcast. It's not. It's a space for us to learn.
Yes.
And of course, and learn from each other. Even we'll have different guests. But I'm also speaking to our marketing directors, our brand managers. This space is going to be, we want people to have that aha moment. We all if you're a marketing director, I'm assuming you're a little bit older than maybe. So you may actually, in fact, know about Blockbuster. And our hope is that you did have an aha moment and stick with us for Market Wave to see what other aha.
I agree with that, absolutely. And thanks for having me for this one.
Thank you for
I'll
being
come
with
back.
us. You come back?
Yes.
That's good. Well, she's my chairman. She kind of has to come back. But I think she actually enjoyed herself, so we're glad she'll be back. Thanks for joining us for Market Wave. Reach out to us. And beside, I don't know where the editors are going to put this in, so it's going to get really funny. No, thanks. And see you for our next episode
of Market Wave.